ready.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the St. Tammany Parish Planning Commission meeting. Today is Thursday, March 13th, 2018. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Casaubon? Here. Mr. Lauren? Here. Mr. Richardson? Here. Mr. Richard? Here. Mr. Willie? Here. Mr. Manella?
Here.
Mr. Davis? Here. Mr. Fitzmaurice? Here. Mr. Doherty? Here. Mr. Drum? Mr. Randolph?
This time we would respectfully ask that you silence phones and any other electronic device. If we wish to appeal any recommendation of this commission, appeals cards are to our right. If you wish to speak before the commission, we would ask that you fill out a speaker's card with your name and address. Each side will be provided 10 minutes with 5 minutes of rebuttal. And lastly, at the end of each case, if you wish to discuss it any further, we would ask that you leave the building as if you go into the back foyer, it echoes into the chamber. This time we would ask you to rise with an invocation by Commissioner Randolph, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
To you to say thank you for all the blessings you bestowed in our lives from times past through this point in time right now. You watched over and protected us. You blessed us with your grace and mercy. We thank you, and we ask that you continue to bless our families and our homes. Bless our government that we serve, that we represent. And Heavenly Father, we ask a special blessing upon all our commissioners as well as all of our residents that's in the audience and those that are impacted. Help us to make the right decision. And all these blessings we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In our packets are the minutes from the February 14th, 2018 meeting. If you'd please review them, and I'll entertain any motions or questions from the commission. Commissioner Randolph. Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Davis.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Davis. Any further comments? Please vote.
Ms. Casaubon, would you like to vote? Motion carries.
This is a public hearing. The public is invited to speak on behalf of or in opposition to any of the cases. Entering parish right-of-way, servitudes and easements, we have none. Minor subdivisions. The first case, there was an error. It's to be corrected. It should be 2018, not 2017 for the record. 2018-948-MSP. Parcel A1-A into parcels A1-A1 and A1-A2 containing 9.08 acres, Ward 3, District 5. The owner, St. Tammany Memorial Gardens, LLC. Surveyor, Randall W. Brown and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Reichert Toledano. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why public hearing is required for this is parcel A1 is part of an existing minor subdivision, and proposed parcel A1-A1 is being accessed by a private servitude. The owner is proposing to create two parcels from parcel A1-A comprising 9.0 acres, and since a private drive will provide access to only one of the parcels, the A1-A1 parcel, said drive is exempt from meeting parish code road construction standards. Therefore, since the proposed minor subdivision meets all other parish code requirements, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision requests.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. And in case I come back to the podium this evening, I'm not going to give that information again to make it easier for both of us. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you tonight. I represent St. Tammany Memorial Gardens. This property is actually in Councilman Fitzgerald's district. It's on the north side of Harrison Avenue. And the good news that I bring you this evening, this is a continuation of a project that I have brought to you before, wherein my client is donating property to the St. Tammany Humane Society for a pet cemetery and a pet park. If you travel Harrison Avenue, you will notice an area that has been developed with some nice fencing, an entranceway, parking area, things of that nature. This is that 2 acres, which is now polished up, and we are ready to donate it to the St. Tammany Humane Society. But in order to donate it, we would appreciate you granting approval to this re-subdivision. So with those remarks, I'll be glad to answer any questions if any of you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve. Commissioner Richardson. Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Richardson. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Petitions, requests, we have none. Entering the Tammany Trace, we have none. Revocations, closing review. Rev 18-03-001, the revocation of portion of Christwood Boulevard located between Louisiana Highway 21 on the west and East Brewster Road to the northeast, south of Covington, Louisiana, Ward 1, District 1. The applicant, Christ Episcopal Church, Christ Episcopal School, and Christwood. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicants are proposing to revoke portions of Christwood Boulevard for the rerouting, construction, and extension of Christwood Boulevard from its current northernmost terminus to intersect with East Brewster Road, and certain related improvements to be undertaken on or within the proximity of Christwood Boulevard. You see the drawings attached to your staff report. I know they're kind of small, but that's the drawing of the area in question. The scope of this project is wide-ranging and one that has many components to it that will require the cooperation of the applicants and the parish in order to achieve said improvements as mentioned above. To that end, all parties will enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement in order to accomplish the results as envisioned. Therefore, since the parish is in favor of the request, the staff has no objections.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I represent Christ Episcopal Church, Christ Episcopal School, and Christwood. And as staff has noted, the cooperative endeavor agreement was actually entered into with the parish some months ago. We are still tweaking a few things as it relates to an amendment in that regard. But the proposed revocation is the first step in what will be an improved road configuration for both Christ Episcopal School and also Christwood, in order to be able to take full advantage of not only the Highway 21 access that both facilities enjoy today, but also to have an opportunity to have direct access to East Brewster Road, which is a much safer and better artery as well. So we will be coming to you from time to time with various elements of the project. These revocations, again, allow us to get the ball rolling. We hope that you will recommend to the council that they ordain the revocation of these parcels as described. And again, if any of you have questions, I will be glad to address them at the right time. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Shane. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren. Motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Rev 18-03-002, the revocation of portion of Napoleon Avenue located in Bayou Liberty Estates subdivision west of Slidell, Louisiana, Ward 9, District 11. The applicant, Stephen P. Accardo, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Steve Stefanczyk. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to revoke a portion of Napoleon Avenue that was first revoked by the parish in favor of the adjacent property owner in 1951. Then it was rededicated in 1990 through negotiations with the owner and the council member for the district, the Honorable Steve Stefanczyk, for providing a turnaround for school buses. However, since that time, the applicant alleges that said property has never been utilized for school buses. Therefore, he seeks to have the property revoked once again and assimilated into his surrounding lots that he owns abutting this property. Given the history of this property, and that according to the applicant, the property has never been used for a school bus turnaround since the property was dedicated back to the parish in 1991 or 1990. The staff believes that the proposal is consistent relative to the Louisiana Revised Statutes governing the revision of immovable property, since the right-of-way does not appear to serve any public use or benefit other than to the applicant himself. Therefore, the staff has no objection to the proposed revocation request, subject to the applicant assimilating said portion of the right-of-way into his adjacent lots that he owns through the parish's re-subdivision process.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? If you please come to the podium, sir. State your name and address for the record, and just give us a brief summary.
My name's Stephen P. Accardo, address 361 Napoleon Avenue. I've been living at that address since 1986. And as I mentioned in my correspondence, at the time I dedicated that property, my son was 6 years old. There was 3 other young children living at the end of Napoleon, which is about a half mile off of Bayou Liberty Road. And we really didn't want the kids standing on Bayou Liberty Road waiting for a bus. So we thought this was all a great idea back then. It just didn't work out. The bus driver refused to come turn around in my driveway. So I dedicated the property basically for nothing. And now I'm just trying to get it back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, this time I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. And you may be seated,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Accardo. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, this is a reasonable request. I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve. Commissioner Randolph. Second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further comments? Not. We have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve. Second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Re-subdivision review, we have none. Dormant subdivision review, we have none. Tentative subdivision review, 2017-839-TP. Lone Oak Park, Phase 2, Ward 8, District 14. Developer owner, Mark Grimaldi. Engineer, J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable T.J. Smith. This was postponed at the February 14th, 2018 meeting. Developer requests postponement until the April 10th, 2018 meeting. Staff.
Yes, sir. They are requesting postponement. They still are working with the homeowners and the council members in the area to come up with some outstanding issues they want to resolve. So they want it postponed.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, sir. I did want to report to the commission that since last month, we have submitted revised plans to staff, and we received their staff comments yesterday. We appreciate the fact, I don't think we submitted those revised plans till one day last week, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So they gave it a quick turnaround, which we appreciate. It's our job now to look at those comments. So I want you to know that the project is progressing. We're just not ready to come to you. And I think that what might be wise, Mr. Chairman, is that perhaps this case be postponed for 2 months, because we still need to work with your staff, work with the councilman, work with the community. I don't want the community thinking that next month is it. I'd rather tell them now that I think we might need 2 months, and I think that would be more appropriate for all.
So again, that is your request, Mr. Shane, to postpone for 2 months?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Mr. Shane, I was present at that very first town hall meeting.
Yes, sir.
Has there another town hall meeting taken place yet, or
No.
is that still being considered?
No, we are committed to another town hall meeting before we come back to the commission.
Okay.
So what, the game plan simply is this. I was hoping to get plans that staff was generally in accord with, meaning that we might need to make revisions, but at least I know that staff is comfortable. Then I thought that we definitely owed discussion with Councilman Belisario and Councilman Smith. Then I think it would be up to them to suggest the night and when we meet, presumably at the Towers Building again. And then coming out of that, we would come back to you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table this for 2 months.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone for 2 months. Commissioner Willie.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Willie. Any further comments? If not, we'll have a motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone for 2 months, second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote.
Motion carries.
2017-888-TP revised. Lakeshore Village, Phase 3, Ward 9, District 13. Developer owner, D.R. Horton Incorporated. Engineer, Duplantis Design Group, P.C. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Michelle Blanchard. This was postponed at the February 14th, 2018 meeting. Staff?
Yes, sir. Based on some of the commission's concerns expressed at last month's meeting, the developer has made some additional modifications to their proposal and has eliminated one waiver request. See letter attached dated February 20th, 2018 from the developer's engineer, Duplantis Design Group, P.C. Furthermore, amendments were made to the restrictive covenants number 8 and 11. See your letter attached dated March 5th, 2018 from same. Staff comments, number 1, the parish acknowledges that Lakeshore Villages East is public insofar as under the jurisdiction of the public entity, the Community Development District. Therefore, to ensure access by the parish in order to maintain the internal streets and drainage infrastructure for Phase 3, the public entity agrees that the removal of any gates at the entrance and the signs to be removed and any and all signage pertaining to the road being private. Comment 2, the staff still is concerned that there will be too many driveway cuts on the now proposed 60-foot wide lots on the west side of Lakeshore Village East, which acts as the major collector road for the development as well as for future development to the north and west, and should therefore be limited insofar as the number of direct driveway accesses. Therefore, in order to mitigate this issue, the staff still recommends a 75-foot wide width per lot, and that the contiguous driveway access points be established, which the developer has done on the revised survey to find collective points for every 2 lots. Comment number 3, as a result of the developer modifying his tentative plan by adding more green space and including 3.235 acres of lake on the western side of the development, the green space requirements have now been satisfied per code. Comment 4, the information block on the plat should include the minimum front, side, corner side, and rear yard setback requirements. Number 5, the developer will provide a temporary turnaround at the end of the terminus of Lakeshore Village North, Provident Bay Road, and North Basin Road. Therefore, the developer must provide a performance obligation amount of $10,000 for each turnaround for a period of 2 years to be provided in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision approval process in order to cover the construction costs associated with the cul-de-sacs or turnarounds in the event that the developer does not fulfill his obligations. Number 6, Section 125-56.D.2 of Chapter 125 subdivision regulations only permits a maximum cul-de-sac length of 700 feet, and since the proposed street, New Basin Road, exceeds that requirement, a waiver of the regulations are required by the commission. Number 7, most of the lots do not have the typical minimum lot frontage of 60 feet on the cul-de-sacs. Therefore, a waiver of the regulations are required by the commission. Number 8, the developer plans to provide, if the developer plans to provide any active amenities for the subdivision phase, he should present it to the Department of Development, a recreational development plan at the time that the developer files for preliminary subdivision review or prior to the developer being issued a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision approval process. Said plan should be presented in document form inclusive of the amenities that are being provided, a site plan and a landscape plan if applicable, a time schedule for development, and the entity or entities who should be responsible for the liability and maintenance of the recreational and/or green space areas. Furthermore, if the commission decides to grant this request, as mentioned earlier, waivers are required, which is a cul-de-sac length for Basin Road, a 60-foot minimum lot width on the cul-de-sacs, and driveway cuts on corner lots from 60 feet required to a minimum of 29 feet requested. Department of Engineering has comments.
General comment number 1, the developer is proposing to include parallel parking along the 90-foot wide Collector Road, Lakeshore Village North. Staff does not approve the proposed design unless there's a median divider to control access and traffic flow. Number 2, a draft TIA was submitted along with the original tentative submittal. The developer's engineer was notified that the draft version is not acceptable and is awaiting the submittal of the final TIA. The developer is required to comply with staff comments. Furthermore, a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership of the commission, 8 members is needed in order to approve the waivers pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 125, Section 125.244, waiver of regulations of the Land Development Code.
Mr. Shane.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Commission, we come to you again, this being, I think, the 3rd month that we will be discussing tentative for Phase 3. But hopefully, once again, you can see that there have been some significant changes to the plat in accordance with our discussions of last month. If any of the commission members would like me to go through the details of the things that I think we were in general accord on last month, I will be glad to. What I would prefer to do is just give an overview and then cite the specific changes that we've made and what we ask you to consider this evening. I have handed out to you an exhibit, and I think it would be easiest if you follow the exhibit as I speak, because we've been smart enough to color code it so that I don't get confused. So maybe if I can stay on subject, you can stay on subject with me, and you'll see what we've done. The colors on the plat, for the most part, address the waiver items that were before you. One of those waiver items has been removed, and I'd like to start there. You will notice that on the west side of the development, we have included a significant portion of the lake. You will see that we have also really removed some lots and or relocated some lots to expand the green space, primarily at the suggestion of Mr. Davis, not that all of you didn't believe that there could perhaps be some improvements. We agreed with his thoughts and went back to the drawing board. I think you will agree that we now have a much more functional green space. We have a broader access to the area, and we clearly have the lake as an available amenity. I would point to your attention, not on this exhibit, but on the plat that we did add to the restrictive covenants, as Mr. Keller's staff had suggested, a provision that made it clear that the residents of Phase 3 would have an access opportunity to use the lake as part of the recreation. Now, maybe changing colors, if you will, I will talk about the width of lots in the cul-de-sacs or knuckles. And tonight, for your convenience, those are the purple-colored lots. They're no different than what you've seen before, but we thought it would be a little easier to pick them up. And I believe that the consensus of the commission's discussion at last month's meeting was that these lots were either close enough or there was enough balance to perhaps warrant the waiver that we need as it relates to the width of those lots. If you will locate New Basin Road, which runs north-south in the westerly section of the road, that was, of course, one of the waiver items that was just discussed in the staff report. Please remember that we're now depicting the future right-of-way on the north side. to show you that there will be at least a three-way stop at that intersection, which we think mitigates perhaps suggestions of excessive speed or safety concerns as it relates to the length of block on New Basin Road. We also have discussed the number of lots, the width of lots along Lakeshore Villages North. That is, if you will, the main drag that runs north-south. So if you'll look at that with me, a few things that I think should address the concerns that have been raised over the past few months. Let's start with the lots on the east side of that road, Lakeshore Villages North, and you'll see that those lots are going to be restricted. There will be no side load or entry so that we won't have any cuts coming onto the road from the east side. If you'll notice on the west side, we have coupled the driveways such that the driveways are, if you will, on each side of the dividing boundary line, and so it sort of ends up being an every other lot configuration. Notice how we've addressed lot 527, which does not have a problem and can meet code, and obviously now lots 528 and 9 are not problematic as well because of our agreement to meet the requirements of code. You'll remember that we also had to address lot 540. That's at the due north on the west side of Lakeshore Villages North, again because of dimension limitations there. Please note the red boxes, the four-way stop in the center of the phase. And also, we have the same right-of-way running across the north side of the phase, which provides a three-way stop. That's the other red box that you see. Those were part of the solution, if you will, to make sure that we had, I guess, good planning in place so that we would not have safety issues as it relates to traffic flow, because we do know that Lakeshore Villages North is going to be a reasonably heavily traveled corridor because it is going to connect to the other phases of the subdivision. Those are the principal changes that we bring to you this evening. We also, I should report as it relates to the TIA, we specifically, with the concurrence of staff, agreed that the TIA tender would be deferred until there could be a meeting with LADOTD. And I'm happy to report that that meeting is scheduled for tomorrow and that the parish is a participant in that meeting so that we will be looking at a variety of traffic issues, both as it relates to Phase 3, but also as it relates to the entirety of the development. As you learned as a zoning commission last week, you're getting a better feel for the size and scale of this development so that as we plan traffic needs and traffic solutions, we want to do it in a more global or regional perspective and not so much just to satisfy Phase 3. The only other comment I would make that I think we are generally satisfied with all staff comments. There had been discussion in our last meeting with staff that we might not get into a particular debate or discussion this evening about the cross-section of Lakeshore Village North and the width of our roads. If you'll notice under the engineering comments, which is page 3, I'm specifically addressing general comment number 1. If the commission prefers, we can defer that issue this evening, or we are happy to proceed and have tentative granted subject to that staff comment, as long as it's understood that we will revisit it as necessary during preliminary. So sort of whatever your pleasure in that regard. We certainly want to be consistent with our discussions with staff. I might add that we met with staff 2 weeks ago, 10 days, 2 weeks ago, and tried to work out most of these issues, and I think that we have. So I think I've done enough talking. We need to see if others in the public have thoughts, and if not, if you have questions, I will be glad to address them at that time. But we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, Jeff, on this Lake Shore Drive, is there gonna be parking in the front of these, driveways or, streetwise?
On Lakeshore Villages North, that's a 90-foot wide right-of-way. Parish ordinance and law prohibits on-street parallel parking.
Okay,
So technically, there will be
no
no
parking.
on-site parallel parking. Practically, we expect that people will park at the curb, as they do not only in subdivisions, but I would say in most developed areas where people live on lots. They have limited parking, obviously, within the driveways of the lots. So we can't assure you that there won't be parking, but it will not, it is not our business plan to have parking per se, but we have to, we are assuming that we should accommodate it if in fact it's gonna happen. Otherwise, people go over the curb and park
Thing.
in people's front yard.
Okay, what about this medium design? Is there any reason, I mean, is the staff does not approve of the proposal design unless there is a medium divider to control access and traffic flow? Are y'all planning?
We're not opposed to a median. We thought that we would continue to discuss that issue at preliminary, but for purposes of this evening, if you're inclined to grant tentative approval subject to that comment as it reads, we will accept that as long as we can, again, reserve the right to revisit that with staff and with you as a commission when we come back at preliminary.
I really like the changes, and I think that it looks like it will work. That my biggest concern is that this is a thoroughfare and that the traffic, and you know how traffic can be, whether you have four-way stops or not. I want to be comfortable with the staff's comments that, you know, that we do this Lakeshore Drive, you know, to the satisfaction of the staff, safety-wise. I don't have a problem with looking at everything else and postponing this part, but I'll see what the rest of the commission has to say about it.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, Mr. Shane, I applaud the Horton engineers for this redesign.
Thank you.
I really like the green space that you've added around the lake and around the upper corners, and you still maintain the ones at the middle south section. I really like that. I really like the ideas about the stops in the main thoroughfare of Lakeshore Village North. I think that four-way stop in the middle there will help with the any kind of impedance with people trying to turn into their driveways and park, and also that additional third one that you have at the very top northern part of the plat. I think that comes into play as well. And I believe, I don't have a problem with per se the 60-foot lots on the west side of that road. I just don't because of those stops. And plus, the way you have the parking so close to each other on each one of the lots. As far as the culvert size, I mean, that's something that I know a couple of the other commissioners were having concern with. Looking at them now, especially with the green space on the culvert size on the far east, which has disappeared, I don't have a problem with that at all. And as far as the 60-foot lot width on the main drag, I don't have a problem with that as all. I'll listen to the other commissioners, but, well, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve with waivers?
Yes, with waivers.
With waivers.
With the three waivers.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve with the three waivers. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, I'm in agreement with Mr. Davis, and I'll second the motion. I think they've done a heck of a job in getting everything together and some of the concerns that the commission had at last month's meeting.
Motion seconded by Commissioner Dougherty. Commissioner Randolph.
I think Dave in his communication a few minutes ago, not Dave, Jim. I think Jimmy may have cleared this up, but I just wanted to ask you, I wanted to be clear because in your presentation, I thought I heard you said that the intersection in the middle would be a three-way, but that will be a four-way, right?
Yes, sir.
That will be four-way. The other question, the gray shaded areas, I know that's a part of the area where the lot driveways have waivers. What was gonna be distinctive about those?
Well, those lots actually will not be side-loaded,
Gotcha.
so there will be no entrance onto either Lakeshore Village North, and as it relates to Lot 540, no cut, if you will, to that future road to the north.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Shane, I appreciate all of that you guys did. Again, I want to echo the other commissioners' comments. I don't have an issue and would like to support it as well, but I want to clarify the motion. It is subject to staff comments, specifically with the median divider, at least at this point in time for further discussion, and the draft TIA components. So the motion with the waivers, which were the three waivers, the cul-de-sac, 60-foot minimum lot, et cetera, as listed, but subject to the remaining staff comments, correct? Correct. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for noting that, Commissioner Richard. Any further comments? If not, again, Mr. Shane, I commend you and D.R. Horton to go back and take the comments of the commission. This is a substantial development and investment. However, in public's interest, the fact that they did take the comments back and reapply them is appreciated. With that, we have a motion by Commissioner Davis to approve with waiver and subject to staff comments, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Please vote.
Motion carries with waivers.
2018-930-TP, Dean Road Estates, Ward 8, District 8. Developer owner, FMG-LTL, engineer J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Chris Canulette. This was postponed at the February 14th, 2018 meeting. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the comments received by the developer from two council members whose districts are affected by this development, modifications have been made to the tentative plat that primarily focuses on the reconfiguring some of the lots and streets in order to eliminate direct access onto Dean Road and amending the green space and amenities as depicted on the tentative plat. Comments. Comment 1. The developer has depicted that federal jurisdictional wetlands exist on the property. Therefore, it is recommended that a national wetlands permit be secured by the developer prior to the submission for preliminary subdivision review. Comment 2, the developer has modified his plan to add a 5-foot wide stone walking jogging path around the detention pond on the north side of Dean Road. However, it should be noted that the developer has not provided any green space for the lots on the south side of Dean Road. The developer should provide a notation on the plat that states that when the stone walking jogging path will be constructed, the staff recommends that the notations state that the path will be constructed before the issuance of the 5th occupancy permit in the subdivision. Comment 3, the 35-foot wide green space buffer along the northern boundary of the subdivision should be relabeled as a 35-foot wide no-cut green space buffer. Additional item in the parish code requires that land clearing permits be applied for and obtained through the Department of Planning prior to the developer receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision approval review process. The staff recommends approval, subject to the developer complying with all staff comments. Engineering has comments.
General comment number 1, verify that a LADOTD approval is not required for the development. On the subdivision plat. Number 2, revise the roadway design to state that it will be based on the geotechnical report. Number 3, revise The entrance of South Dean Road crossing as it does not have the required 80 by 100-foot right-of-way for a boulevard entrance. Number 4, verify that the lake is existing. The site appears to be completely wooded. Number 5, include in the dedication statement that all signage and posts will be privately maintained. Number 6, revise the typical 80-foot boulevard entrance section to include 2 required egress lanes.
Thank you. Mr. Burks.
Hello, Sean Burks, representing the developer. Basically, this is a subdivision, Dean Road Estates, that we came to you last month and had a very brief discussion to table it. We did get word that there was some concern from the councilman in the area, so we did take time to listen to the concerns, and we did make a pretty significant change to the overall development. We had originally come in with 47 lots. We had several of the lots, or many of the lots fronted on Dean Road. We since shrunk that down to 44 lots. So we reduced it by 3, and we did create 5-foot no-access buffers along the perimeter of Dean Road, going all the way around. We've also added some recreation area around the retention pond, I mean, as far as a walkway, and we did create a 35-foot green space going across the top that butts up with Chanticleer subdivision. I do have some comments that I'd like to respond to some of the staff. In general, we kind of agree with all staff comments. There are some minor things that we would like to address, and hopefully y'all would consider making these changes. Under item 1 for planning, as far as permits for wetlands, what our plan is we're planning on building the first phase, which would be the north side of Dean Road, which has no wetlands on the property. After that is built and developed out and sold, and then a need is proven, then we would apply to go ahead and do the south side. At the south, when we go for phase 2 is when we would want to apply for the wetland permit. So there is no need to apply for a permit now on the phase 1, which would be on the north side. So we would request that to be kind of waived until the time is right for phase 2. Item number 2, we are okay with, and placing the notation on the plat, that's fine. We'll be happy to place that notation on there. The 35-foot, item number 3, the 35-foot wide green space buffer along the north boundary line. We would like to see if we can, as far as putting the words no cut buffer, upon visual inspection, it appears as though a ditch was dug. We don't know if it's on our property or if it's on Chanticleer's property to the north. We have a survey crew out there doing it, finding out right now. That land, some of that land might already be cleared, or it might be on Chanticleer's property. So we would not, if there's a drainage ditch servicing Chanticleer on our property, we would not want to block it off. We would have to make sure we accommodate that. So we would ask that we could address this whenever we do preliminary, once we start doing design and looking at the overall project. Informational items, we're okay with that. The engineering comments, the number 1, the DOTD approval. We're more than a quarter mile away from state highway, so DOTD permit is not required. So we would like to just bring that up. In regard to the rest of the comments, we're okay with subdivision plat number 2. We're okay with number 3, modifying making sure we have 80 by 100-foot right-of-way. That's not a problem. Item 4, we're okay with. We just need to take the word existing off of one of the notes, so we're fine with that. 5, we're okay with that. Number 6, one of the things that we have is we have kind of a weird scenario where we have a road that goes through the development, 22 lots to the north, 22 lots to the south. One of the things that we're asking for is to have 2 egress lanes. And just about everybody's going to go away from the interstate. They're going to drive the other direction because it's a dead end going the other direction. We really don't want to encourage people to go right or left. We really just need 1 egress lane. So given the low number of traffic that's out there, since it's only 22 lots, we would request that we get it waived to where we are allowed to have one egress lane. Other than that, we're okay with all the other comments, and I'm here if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burks. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Mr. Shane.
Good evening. I had expressed some concerns to Mr. Burks on behalf of some residents in the area, and I wanted to thank him for making all of the changes that we discussed. We were concerned about the lots having frontage either on Dean Road or the service road, which was the prior presentation. Obviously, that has changed. I think it resulted in a reduction of 2 to 3 lots, which we appreciate the developer doing, because I know that's a significant economic concession. We also noted that there's a 5-foot no-access easement that's been placed on the rear of the lots that now front Dean and the service road. We appreciate that well. That will ensure us that people will not be accessing. We've also made a request to Mr. Burks, to the developer, with regard to the type of fencing that will be in the rear yards along the road as to what people will see as they drive down the road. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to say thank you to Mr. Burks and his client, and we support your consideration of tentative this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Make a motion that we accept this as tentative with the waivers.
Commissioner Dougherty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Burke, on the intersection of Dean Road and Robert Road, I have a problem that not being a 90-degree intersection. And my understanding, talking with Councilman Canulet and Belisario, that y'all were going to try and get that some way, somehow, or either have a right turn, left turn scenario at that intersection.
We did discuss that with both Councilman Canulet and Councilman Belisario, and we are planning on reviewing that intersection to see what improvements could be done. Some of it is a visibility issue, and some other things might be just geometry as far as how it all aligns, like you're mentioning. But we promise to take that into consideration whenever we do preliminary. Even though it is more than a quarter mile away, we do think it is relevant to try to help out.
But it's going to be your customers.
That's right.
And the development there. I believe you need to add mandatory homeowners dues into restrictive covenants, because if you don't do it and get it in the restrictive covenants now, it's almost impossible to go back and for the residents to get it added. So if you can have that added, I would appreciate it. Now, you said in the other phase, because it's not going to be built right now, so you're not going to have to apply for wetlands. If you have to go through and, let's say the first phase sells out great, and it's, you know, the developer ends up with money in his pocket and everything, what's the intent of building on the lots in the wetlands? Are you gonna raise those properties? Are you gonna have the houses elevated or what?
You know, well, one of the things that we run into with a lot of developments is when people think wetlands, they think marsh and they think swamp. And in this particular case, you do have areas that are just pine trees. And so it's just generally areas over here that just don't drain very well. So the drainage will be picked up as a part of the overall design for the overall project. So a lot of those areas, what happened when the rest area was constructed, it actually blocked off natural drainage patterns, as well as, and that caused a lot of these issues that are over there. Otherwise, there would be no wetlands on that property. So, but anyway, the intent is it'll probably be the same type of construction it is everywhere else.
Okay, the drainage of the retention pond is going to go, I don't remember, to be to the east, I think, if I remember right.
Correct.
Over to the interstate and then go down the interstate and then go under the interstate. Has anyone verified that the pipe under the interstate is significantly large enough to handle this additional load?
That's something we'll be addressing at preliminary.
Okay.
We are, part of the process we'll be going through with preliminary is topoing all of that just to make sure that we can analyze that.
Okay, and I guess it would be probably the best to bore under the interstate again, if it's not, and put a second culvert rather than change the size of the culvert that's there.
Oh, I think it would be easier to put a larger retention pond than it would be to bore underneath the interstate, but that's something we would have to take a look at.
Okay. I don't know how well, you'd have to give up a couple of lots or something to get a larger retention pond.
That's something we'd have to take a look at, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I will second,
Motion seconded by Commissioner Dougherty. Any further comment of the commission? Commissioner Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, we have a motion with waivers, but I want to make sure we know exactly what waivers we're agreeing to. Mr. Burks asked for some relief on 1 and 3 under planning. Obviously, both of those cases were something to deal with in the future because he doesn't know whether that drainage ditch is on his property or not. And as I recall, under engineering, item 6, he requested that we would have 1 instead of 2 egress lanes. Is that the motion? Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And thank you for the clarification, Commissioner Richard. With that, any further comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve with waivers and comment, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Please vote.
Motion carries with waivers.
Preliminary subdivision review. Again, there was a typo on the agenda. It should read 2018 instead of 2017. 2018-922-PP. Lakeshore Villages, Phase 3, Ward 9, District 13. Developer owner, D.R. Horton Incorporated. Engineer, Duplantis Design Group, P.C. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Michelle Blanchard. Postponed until the April 10th, 2018 meeting. Mr. Shane.
Respectfully
Oh, excuse
request
me.
that you postpone until April.
Thank you. Staff, excuse me.
Yes, sir. It was carried over on the agenda from last month, postponed for the April meeting.
Okay. And Mr. Shane, you concur, correct? Yes, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak on behalf of the postponement? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission.
Yeah.
Commissioner Davis.
I'll make a motion to postpone for 1 month.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone for 1 month. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone for 1 month, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Please vote.
Motion carries.
2018-950-PP, The Landings of Cross Gates, Phase 5, Ward 8, District 9. Developer owner, Mac Development, LLC. Engineer, J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Gene Bellisario. Staff.
Preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office, and an inspection of the site was made. It's recommended that the preliminary submittal be approved subject to the following. On the preliminary plat, 1, the rear building setback for lots 61 through 67 is in conflict with the required 25-foot no-cut or access easement. Revise the rear setback lines to address this conflict. Street and signage plan, number 2, revise the no outlet sign and the legend to call out W14-2. Sewer and water plan, number 3, show the required clearance from natural ground to the midpoint of the valves on the SWIP. Number 4, revise the SWIP to show the location and construction of the entrance off of Crawford Landing Road. Number 5, show on the SWIP plan the location of the on-site SWIP posting and updates to the SWIP legend. Informational items, a funded maintenance obligation in the amount of $10,000 is required in accordance with St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Land Development Code, Chapter 125, Subdivision Regulations, Article 7, Studies, Plans, and Review Procedures, Section 125-201, Maintenance Obligations, Paragraph A, which states funded letters of credit for existing parish roads to ensure the repair of any damage to the roads resulting from the construction in connection with the subdivision, even though the developer has indicated that a construction road will be used directly from Phase 5 to the site of Crawford Landing Road and not to use any roads within the Landing subdivision. The maintenance obligation is required since Crawford Landing Road is in the parish maintenance system. No mandatory developmental fee is required at final submittal in accordance with St. Tammany Parish Ordinance, Part 2, Land Development Code, Chapter 125, Subdivision Regulations, since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. The developer is hereby advised that upon application for final subdivision approval, the engineer of record for the development shall certify in writing that all aspects of construction have been completed in accordance with the approved plans and parish ordinances. If any construction activity is proposed that is not in substantial compliance with the approved plans and parish ordinances, the engineer of record for the development shall notify in writing the Department of Development prior to beginning said construction activity. The developer and/or engineer of record shall obtain written approval from the Department of Development prior to beginning any proposed construction activity that is not in substantial compliance with the approved plans and parish ordinances. Revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the March 13, 2018 Planning Commission meeting to ensure that any additional comments at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Mr. Burks.
I'm Sean Burks, representing the developer, Mac Development, LLC. This is a project, you may or may not have seen this one before. It was actually first brought up, received preliminary approval, the overall development in 1997. Phases 1 through 4 were constructed. Construction stopped in the mid-2000s. The preliminary had expired. And then we came back in 2015 and got another work order to go ahead and start construction. And they started clearing the road right-of-ways, and then there was a lapse for another 2 years that occurred. There was a change of leadership within Crossgates Incorporated, and now our developer, Mac Development, is now working on this project to kind of finish off the project. The good news is that it's more or less the same exact plan that was submitted in 1997 and in 2015. There are some minor differences. One is, even though the property was zoned A4, we did make modification to the front setbacks and made them 30 feet wide. 25 foot is the minimum. We did make them 30. In some of the previous phases, there were as much as 40 feet front. We did make the modification to allow a little bit more options for houses on some of the smaller depth lots. As far as with staff comments, we concur with all staff comments, and we will make those revisions as we move forward before we try to get our work order. And I'm here if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burks. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and if you haven't, please fill out a speaker's card.
Okay, I haven't now, but I will. My name is Mark Newton. I live at 301 Dockside Drive. I've been there for 14 years. I believe every lot has been sold except for one in the first 4 phases. And my concern is that the standard for Phase 5 is going to remain the same as it was for the first 4 subsurface drainage for rainwater. The setbacks, every lot's got 40 foot except for one, and they had to get permission from the rest of the subdivision because they built their house in the wrong spot. There's a concern that I haven't seen any drawings. I'm just hearing about this a couple weeks ago, and I'm hearing more and things about changing the name of this section of the subdivision to the Landings Reserve is what I'm hearing now. I think it's phase 5 of a completed subdivision. I don't think it should be a separate subdivision myself. But I'm concerned, and I'd like to know more, and I'm sorry if I don't know the process completely, but I'm here to learn. And I want to know more about this project, and I have concerns.
Thank you, sir.
The lighting, the mailboxes, you know, we've got custom lighting, custom mailboxes, and I want to make sure that, you know, we got mandatory homeowners dues. Is this subdivision going to have mandatory this phase? And I just don't know those answers yet. So I'm not sure if this is where they come or they come later. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition or make a comment? Mr. Burks, do you wish to make any rebuttal or comment?
In regard to the design as far as the types of roads, the subsurface drainage, this was all designed the exact same time in 1997 as the rest of it, so we'll be very consistent. And like I said, the only change that we had that's any difference is the 30-foot setback instead of the 40-foot front setback. And once again, that was to allow more options for the homes on the smaller lots that are in the interior. As far as HOA, my understanding is that all of this is part of the overall development. I'm sure there's some legal process to make sure they belong, but I think it's every intention for this to be a part of the landings phases 1 through 4. And I'm trying to think if there's any other questions. I guess that's.
Is it going to have a different name?
As far as I know right now, it's just the landings phase 5 is what's it going to be. I mean, that's what we're proposing is landings phase. We're not proposing another name.
Thank you for their comments.
Thank you.
With that, at this time, yes, ma'am.
Pamela Newton, 301 Dockside. I guess my question or comment is the setback, because we have subdivision restrictions, and in the restrictions, it is 40-foot setback minimum. So I know the parish may be different, and I don't know how this plays into the homeowner's restrictions versus the parish restrictions, if we wanted to keep the 40-foot setback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Burks.
Typically, what happens in subdivisions is as each phase gets done and it gets recorded, restrictions get added for each one of those phases. And that's what would happen in this case. From all indications from talking to the developer, the intention is to have basically the same type restrictions. There might be a couple of modifications here or there. But I think it's going to be more or less the same as what's in the existing phases 1 through 4. So,
But this phase 5 may have some modifications specific to phase 5.
the only thing that would, I mean, my understanding is if they do anything, it might be more restrictive or something on phase 5. But that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public who wishes to comment? This time, we'll close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, subject to staff comments. Commissioner Dougherty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, Sean, in the restrictive covenants, you need to have added mandatory homeowners dues in there. And I want to follow up on the 30 versus 40 feet setback. Has the developer looked at getting the 40-foot setback? I know that you indicated that some of the smaller interior lots may cause a building size problem, which to me, would be more of a problem than the other 10-foot on the setback.
Typically, what happens on the smaller lots is if you have the 40-foot front setback, what they've run into is that the rear yards have been really small. And the intent was not to have a rear yard that small. Some of the lots are naturally very deep. That setback's not gonna be a problem to go back further. But the option to have 30 feet was made because of the having very small rear yards.
Okay, thank you. On the, where the drainage outfall is that gonna be subsurface?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will second the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Any further comments of the commission? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, subject to staff comments, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Please vote.
Motion carries.
2018-951-PP, Dove Park Estates Phase 1, Ward 4, District 5. Developer owner, Dove Park Estates LLC. Engineer, Duplantis Design Group, PC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Reichert Toledano. Staff.
The preliminary approval must be postponed since the development's being reviewed by the Zoning Commission for a major amendment to the PUD at the March 6, 2018 Zoning Commission meeting.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioner. We understand the reason that it needs to be tabled, and we acquiesce in that tabling this evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the postponement? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren. Motion by Commissioner Lauren to postpone for 1 month. Commissioner Davis.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Davis. Any further comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Lauren to postpone for 1 month, second by Commissioner Davis. Please vote.
Mr. Manalo, would you like to vote? Motion carries.
Final subdivision review, 2017-952-FP. Pontchartrain Medical Park, Ward 4, District 5. Developer owner, Pontchartrain Development Partners, LLC. Engineer, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Reichert Toledano. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on March 1st, 2018. The inspection disclosed that all concrete roads are constructed, road shoulders are constructed, and subsurface drainage is functioning. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. General comments, number 1, need legal description on plat. 2, need 911 addressing on plat. 3, need street names and traffic signs installed. 4, need blue reflectors at each hydrant. 5, complete the swales on the east and south boundary lines of the subdivision and provide as-built elevations. 6, note number 3 on the as-builts needs to be removed since all lot drainage must go to the detention pond or limited to the amount of runoff indicated in the approved hydrological report. 7, the main entrance road must tie-in must be complete. 8, patch the culvert crossing area on Hickory Street. 9, remove the word proposed from all comments on the as-built drawings and show as-built elevations of the culvert and ditch improvement. 10, complete the construction of the detention pond. The plans show 80% complete. 11, an 8-foot fence must be installed along the 10-foot no-cut buffer on Pontchartrain Medical Park side of the buffer to catch any runoff from Pontchartrain Medical Park lots. 12, the required landscape buffer is to be exclusive of all utility servitudes. The required buffer size on the street side of each lot will vary depending upon the depth of the lot. 13, a 10-foot no-cut buffer required along all side and rear property lines. 14, provide a letter of acceptance from the utility provider. 15, provide clear water test results. On the final plat, number 16, revise the title block to state final plat instead of preliminary. 17, including the dedication statement that all street signs, traffic control signs, and posts will be maintained by the HOA. 18, include the legal description on the final plat. 19, include 911 addressing on the final plat. 20, revise the plat to include the 25-foot setback for all lots abutting residential parcels. On the as-built paving and drainage plan, 21, provide as-built information for the boulevard entrance to show it drains in accordance with the drainage plan. 22, drainage note number 3 should be removed or revised to state lot drainage must conform to the drainage plan. 23, provide as-built information for drainage manhole near lot number 7. 24, the detention pond is required to be 100% complete before final plats can be signed. The as-built drainage plan will need to be resubmitted once the pond is complete. 25, provide as-built information for the 6-foot private drainage servitude on the back of lots 1 through 7. 26, complete and return a copy of the fill and grading statement. On the as-built sewer and water plan, 27, provide as-built sewer line slope information on all gravity sewer lines. On the as-built SWIP and signage plan, revise the as-built SWIP and signage plan to lot layout to match the layout shown on the final plat. 29, remove the construction entrance references from the as-builts. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,020 linear feet times $25 per linear foot for $25,500 for a period of 2 years. The developer must comply with all staff comments. Plats will not be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Since the developer has no end users, mandatory developmental fees are not due prior to signing the subdivision plat, but are due upon building permit application. The subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line, and revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the March 13, 2018 Planning Commission meeting to ensure that any additional comments established at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Paul Marone on behalf of Pontchartrain Development Partners, LLC, and Pontchartrain Medical Park. Mr. Watson just read a lengthy list of items to you. The vast majority of those items are changes or modifications or corrections to the plat. All of those items, I've talked with Mr. McHugh and his staff, are and can be made, have been made, and can be resubmitted after the meeting this evening. What I'd like to do is go through what I believe are the more substantive items, which is the actual on-ground work out there, and give you an update on where these items are, as most of them are complete. With regards to item number 3 and 4, all of the street signs and traffic signs are installed. With regards to item 4, the blue reflectors are in. With regards to item 5, the swales are constructed. All that is needed is to final dress those as soon as it is dry enough to do so. Assuming we continue to get dry weather through this week, we're hoping to be able to dress those off at the end of this week. Items 7 and 8 are both complete. The main entrance road tie-in has been completed, and the patch on the culvert crossing Hickory Street has been completed. With regards to item 10, the detention pond, it is completed. There is some dressing that is required on the side slopes, much like the swales. Again, as soon as it is dry enough, that dressing can take place. But the overall construction of that pond is done, and it is finished as of today. With regards to item 11, the wording in item 11 is a little bit confusing, and let me clarify for you. Some of you may recall when we came through with preliminary. This item is referencing a common boundary line where we meet Colonial Court. And we agreed at that time that we would have a 10-foot no-cut buffer. On the inside of that buffer, we would have a wooden opaque fence. And on the inside of that fence, we would have a small swale that would make sure and collect the water and get it to the detention pond. So there are really 3 things happening in that area. The buffer is identified and preserved. The line for the fence has been cut. The swale is in place but needs to be finally dressed because the fence has to be put in before we can dress the swale. If we dress the swale now, when the fence is finally constructed, we're going to be right back where we started. So everything is in place to finish that work. We're waiting on dry enough weather to get the fence builder in there. He's been given the go-ahead. We hope to have him start perhaps later this week, depending on the weather. Other than that, we will comply, of course, with the remainder of number 11, and we'll do so as soon as weather permits. With regards to item 13, as I just mentioned, we do have an obligation for that no-cut buffer along our rear lot lines where we meet Colonial Court. However, to my knowledge, there is no-cut buffer along the interior side lot lines between our lots. I think that's an error. We would not have no-cut buffer between medical district lots. We have the landscape buffer there, of course, but that's not a no-cut buffer, so I wanted to clarify that. Item 15, the test results are complete and according to Utilities, Inc. have passed. All of the other items, I believe, on the list are plat revisions, whether it be as-built or final plat or paving and drainage. All of those are in-office work, which do not require any field work. So being that all of the field work, other than the construction of that fence, which again we expect to have done very soon, pending the weather and the dressing of the slopes on the pond and the swales, there's no further infield work to be done. So we would respectfully request your approval, subject to the staff comments and my comments here this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff, I want to ask if you could help clarify item 13. Sounds to me like we're in agreement on this no-cut buffer, but the side and rear property lines, the side specifically, seems to be a concern. We need to make sure we understand what we're talking about here.
I believe there's a landscape buffer along the side of the lots, and then within that landscape buffer, there's no cut.
Okay, so, Mr. Marone, is that obviously, the issue here is whether it's a landscape or a landscape with a no-cut.
Right. We acknowledge there would be a landscape buffer along the lines, the sidelines. We're not aware of there being a no-cut obligation along the sidelines. Not aware of a code requirement that there would be a no-cut buffer on your sidelines. Typically, the no-cuts are something that's agreed to in the process, and that has never come up to my knowledge, that we would have no cuts between our lots in any way.
But to be clear, the 10-foot no-cut buffer that was previously agreed to on those exterior lots, we're going to continue to comply with.
Absolutely. And then that is noted on the plat, yes.
Thank you.
I guess I would add, we're not asking for a waiver. If your code requires it, then we'll comply with code. I just, whatever the code says about those side buffers, we will comply with those.
Commissioner Richard.
I know it seems like we have quite a lot of comments, but I understand where we are in all of them, and I move to approve subject to staff comments.
Motion by Commissioner Richard to approve subject to staff comments. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll second.
Motion seconded by Commissioner.
With one comment. So Commissioner Richard, on the general comments 13, if we approve or make the motion to approve based on staff comments, does that obligate the developer to have that all side no cut? Or would it just be based on the ordinance? Okay.
So just for clarification, in the motion by Commissioner Richard to approve subject to staff comments under general comment 13, be noted that the side no cut would follow current ordinance, that the rear buffer no cut is in place. However, the side would only be there if subject to ordinance, so that we can clarify it and be consistent with what parish ordinance would be. But we do recognize there is a 10-foot landscape buffer. Okay, with that, we have the motion by Commissioner Richard to approve, subject to staff comments, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Please vote.
Motion carries.
2017-953-FP, Garden Walk, Phase 2, Ward 3, District 5. Developer owner Citadel Builders, engineer Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Reichert Toledano. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on March 1st, 2018. The inspection disclosed that 2 inches of asphalt roads are constructed, road shoulders and detention ponds are constructed. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. General comments: 1, blue reflectors are needed at the fire hydrants. 2, fire hydrants need to be raised to the required height. 3, the final 2 inches of wearing coarse asphalt need to be constructed at a later date. 4, provide letter of acceptance from the utility company. 5, provide clear water tests. 6, complete and return the fill and grading statement. On the final plat, number 7, revise the proposed drainage call out for the required ditch to reflect that it's existing. 8, call out all drainage servitudes on the final plat. 9, remove or revise note number 9 on the final plat, as only a 5-foot drainage servitude should exist on the north side of all property lines. Revise the plat to show this information. This was done in Phase 1A to avoid the building of homes within a drainage servitude and is required for Phase 2. 10, include in the dedication statement that the HOA will maintain the street signs, traffic control signs, and signpost. On the as-built paving and drainage plan, number 11, revise the call-out on parcel G5 from future to existing. As-built sewer and water plan, number 12, provide as-built sewer line slope information on all gravity sewer lines. The as-built SWIP and signage plan, 13, street name signs should be provided at the intersection of Jordan Loop and Garden Walk Drive. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a performance obligation will be required for the asphalt road in the amount of 780 linear feet times 1/4 times $40 per linear foot, equal to $7,800 for a period of 6 months, covering the cost of the wearing course that will be applied at a later date. A warranty obligation is not required at this time and will be established upon the release of the performance obligation. The developer must comply with all staff comments, and plats will not be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Mandatory developmental fees are as follows: road impact fee, $1,077 per lot times 21 lots for $22,617. Drainage impact fee, $1,114 per lot times 21 lots for $23,394. The fees are due before the subdivision plats can be signed. The subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line, and revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the March 13, 2018 Planning Commission meeting to ensure that any additional comments that arise at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Paul Marone, this time on behalf of Citadel Builders for Garden Walk Subdivision Phase 2. A shorter list than we went through last time, but many of the same items. As with the last case, the blue reflectors have been installed. The fire hydrants have been raised to the required height. And all of the other field work has been completed, including the installation of all the street name signs, and particularly at the intersection of Jordan Loop and Garden Walk Drive. With regards to the clear water test samples, we believe, I have copies of the samples that were taken for this entire system for Phase 1. And we believe that those samples, since they were done for the entire system, including the subsequent phases in this phase, we believe that those are the appropriate samples. So we do not believe that additional samples are required. If the state and/or Mr. Watson in engineering feels differently about that, then certainly we'll comply with whatever those requirements are, but we believe that we are in compliance at this time. The remaining other 5 or 6 items are all plat revisions, in-office work for Mr. McHugh, which can be completed rather shortly. So again, the only other somewhat unusual item with this particular project is that, as you've seen with other subdivisions in the past, The developer is proposing to come back later after the home construction is done and do the additional final 2 inches of asphalt, which we have done in the past, and that's a mechanism to preserve the streets longer. Mr. Watson noted that there will be a performance obligation for that. We understand that. We're prepared to post that, and we would respectfully request your approval, subject to my comments and the staff comments as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Paul?
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the both sets of final plans. One is a typical plat, and the second one is the paving and drainage plans.
Yes.
These retention areas, on the regular plat, they're in green, but basically they're all not in use. Is that correct? Don't you say something about in the draining plan they have future plans for the ones on the far east and the far west? The drainage plans itself says, if you look at, it says future dry retention storage area all the way on the
east side, is that what
east
you're
side,
referring to?
right?
Yes, I see that on the paving and drainage plan.
Right, and also
I believe that's it.
as well on the eastern side, it says future. Is that not correct, or is that, they're actually gonna be dry storage area now?
Those are actually outside of the footprint of what we're coming in with right now. So they are future. They are going to be, they're not going to be in use with this phase as I appreciate it. But the retention that is there does meet the ordinance.
Okay, so realistically then, if you're looking at the 4 interior detention areas, only 3 of them are gonna be used. Because G4 also states future. Is that correct?
G4.
Where it says, yeah, garden walk.
Yes,
G4.
that's correct. Yes,
So-
G4.
So are those three, the 3, G1, G2, and G3, is sufficient enough for retention for this phase?
That is my understanding, yes.
Does engineering okay with that? I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by
Thought
Commissioner.
I'd catch you on something there, buddy.
Motion by Commissioner
No, I'm
Davis to approve. Commissioner Randolph. Second by Commissioner Randolph. Any other comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Davis to approve, subject to staff comments, second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote.
Motion carries.
2017-954-FP, the Preserve at River Chase, Phase 1, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, the Preserve at River Chase LLC. Engineer, SLD Engineering and Surveying LLC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction. Final inspection was made March 1st, 2018. The inspection disclosed that all of the asphalt roads are constructed, road shoulders need to be constructed, and the subsurface drainage is functioning. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. General comments, number 1, asphalt test results must be submitted. 2, street name and traffic signage must be installed. Number 3, blue reflectors are needed. Number 4, roadways need to be broomed so that a meaningful inspection can be made. Number 5, complete the construction of the sidewalks in the common areas. Number 6, we need the benchmark information on the plat. Number 7, provide as-built signage plan. 8, provide a letter of acceptance from the utility provider and clear water tests. Final plat, number 9, revise the dedication statement to include that the alleys will be privately maintained. 10, include in the dedication statement who will own and maintain the street name signs, traffic control signs, and posts. The as-built paving and drainage plan. 11, add drainage flow arrows for each lot to the as-built drainage plan. 12, add the proposed elevations and inverts. 13, include a legend to distinguish between proposed and as-built elevations. 14, complete and return a copy of the fill and grading statement. 15, revise the paving and drainage plan title block to read as-built paving and drainage plan. The as-built sewer and water plan. 16, add the proposed elevation and inverts to the as-built water and sewer plan. 17, include a legend to distinguish between proposed and as-built elevations. 18, add pipe lengths to the as-built plan. 19, add as-built gravity sewer slopes. 20, revise the water and sewer plan title block to read as-built. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,137 linear feet times $22 per linear foot for $42,600 for a period of 2 years. The developer must comply with all staff comments. Plats will not be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Mandatory developmental fees are as required, or are as follows. Required road impact fee, $1,077 per lot times 75 lots for $80,775. Drainage impact fee, $1,114 per lot for 75 lots for $83,550. Fees are due before subdivision plats can be signed. The subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line, and revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the March 13 Planning Commission meeting to ensure that any additional comments established at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone again for the last time this evening, this time on behalf of the Preserve at River Chase LLC. Again, familiar punch list items that I'll work through with you and give you the information that I have as to where we are. I did correspond late this afternoon with Mr. Jason Ellis, who is the engineer on this project, to get an update on each one of these items as freshly as I could. With regards to the asphalt test results, they have been taken and are ready for submittal. The street name and traffic signs have all been installed. The blue reflectors have been installed. The cleaning of the roadways is in process and will be completed before the end of the week. The construction of the sidewalks in the common areas likewise are under construction and will be done by the end of the week. All of the other items are items that are required to be provided from the engineers through either plat revisions or plan revisions to the engineering staff, including the benchmark that is needed. Mr. Ellis confirmed to me that all of those will be provided as requested and as set forth on here without exception. The other item that I would mention in the preamble, it says that the road shoulders need to be constructed. I did confirm for him this is a curb and gutter development, so all of that is completed. All of the work necessary to do that, he confirmed for me late this afternoon, is in fact completed. So again, our effort was to make sure that all of the field work, or as much of the field work as possible, was done, save for the few items that I mentioned, which we hope to have done by the end of the week. So we would respectfully request your approval, subject to the staff comments, understanding that no plats will be signed and filed until each of these items are resolved. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. I was confused as the devil. On the screen, it's showing up as 2017-923, and in the informational package, it's 2018-954.
Correct.
So-
Madam Secretary, if you would make the correction for and make a comment.
So the correct case number is 2018-954 FP. There was an error on the PowerPoint in the agenda. So
the
I've corrected it.
954 is the correct number.
954, 2018. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The written agenda is correct. What's on the screen is incorrect, though the description is the correct description. Thank you for the clarification. Any further comments, Commissioner Lauren? None. Commissioner Richard.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair. One of the comments engineering made was that all the asphalt roads are constructed, but the road shoulders need to be constructed. And if I heard Mr. Marone correct, they're not going to be because that's not the plan. Used the word, I'm sorry, gutter. I'm not as familiar with that, so would you mind commenting on that? And specifically, was that part of the original design?
Yes, and Mr. Watson might be able to clarify, because I was a little unclear on
Okay.
that comment, so that's why I asked our engineer this afternoon, are the road shoulders completed? And he said, well, we're curb and gutter, which basically means that you do not have open ditches. So you've got a curb, and then you've got subsurface inlets that catch that water. So you don't have your typical road shoulder that we would expect to have. So I wasn't quite sure what staff was after, so I asked our engineer, is there anything left to be done with regards to the shoulders and the curb and gutter installation? And he says, no, that is all completed.
Well, thank you. Jay, you have any comments? Or
Yeah, at the time of inspection, which was March 1st, it was either, obviously the roads are curb and gutter, so it looked like there might be some grading work that needed to be done outside of the gutter where there was a change in elevation. And it also might be reflected on the alleys, where there is no curb and gutter, I believe, on the edge of the alleys, and it might have needed grading work there. But it may be done by now, I don't know, but at the time of the
So would it be
inspection-
safe for us to then maybe be able to disregard those comments?
They may be able to, but I think we're kind of both on the same page that it either is done or should have been done, but we can't verify.
Okay, so
what's
subject
being done out there.
to being built as plans were indicated, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Richard to approve, subject to staff comments and subject to the completion as built. Commissioner Randolph.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further comments? If not, again, we have a motion by Commissioner Richard to approve, subject to staff comments and to the as-built define. Second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Amendments to Chapter 125 subdivision regulations, we have none. Old business, MS 14-10-059, Lot 2, interlots 2-A and 2-B, Ward 7, District 7. The owner, Christopher R. Jean, surveyor, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Jacob Groby. Request by owner to amend the minor subdivision survey plat. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Refer to your, in the old business section where the letter from Jones Fussell, Mr. Jeff Shane to me regarding his request, which is an amendment to an existing minor subdivision. If you take a look at the survey plat that's attached to the letter, circled in red, the owner of the properties wishes to create an additional access servitude off of a private road, Capitol Road, that's going to be 60 feet wide by 100 feet in depth to allow for access through the greenbelt in favor of Lot 2B. The staff has no objections to it.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to keep my remarks brief. This is an interesting short story that has a happy ending. If you look at the drawing, some of you on the commission will remember when I created this minor subdivision at 434 and I-12. At the time, Mr. Robert Summerholder lived, and I think still lives, on Capel Road, which is just south of the subdivision. His son, Ian Summerholder, some of you may be familiar with him. He is a fine actor and has done a lot of wonderful humanitarian things, not just in our community, but throughout the country. He took an interest in the property and ended up purchasing Lot 2B. The story becomes interesting because when I got the subdivision approved, his father wasn't too happy about the subdivision. and his father insisted that the commission have me include a 100-foot no-cut buffer along Capel Road. Small world that it is, his son now owns Lot 2B and wants to have access to the private drive that goes to his father's home. And of course, we are delighted that he owns the property and that he wants to use the drive. So the request to you this evening is to amend the plat to allow for a 60-foot wide by 100-foot deep, 100-foot deep, cut, if you will, through the no-cut buffer so that he can access this parcel. If any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve. Commissioner Richardson. Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comments? We have a motion by Commissioner Davis to approve, second by Commissioner Richardson. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Money Hill Plantation, Phase 7A, Ward 6, District 6. Developer owner, Money Hill Plantation, LLC. Engineer, J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Richard Tanner. Request by developer to eliminate a 5-foot wide no-access servitude. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Direct you to the letter in the packet from Mimi Dossett, who's the president of Money Hill Association and Country Club. They are requesting to, if you look at the survey, it's attached to the letter, you'll notice lots 423, 424, and 435 and 434 and 35 on Hidden Oaks Lane. They wish to remove the 5-foot no-access servitudes that were established along Hidden Lake Lane at the time that subdivision received final approval. The developer wishes to market those lots so that they have the option and flexibility of side loading onto that roadway. Upon review of the staff's their request, we have no objection to this request.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
No further comments unless any of you have questions concerning the request.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve. Commissioner Richardson. Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comments? I have a motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, second by Commissioner Richardson. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Goodby Square, Phase 1, Ward 1, District 3. Developer owner, Lonesome Development, LLC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Request by developer to reconsider final subdivision approval by eliminating staff comment number 8. Staff.
Mr. Chairman, I take the unusual step of approaching from the podium because I spent most of the night out here speaking with the Homeowners Association of the owner of Goodby Square, the Homeowners Association of, and now I'm drawing a blank on the subject. This is embarrassing. It's been a long night, a long day. And the representative developer and Dr. Martin, who you all know with the Goodby Civic Association.
Respectfully, Mr. Fontenot, if you'll state your name.
Oh, Sidney Fontenot, Director of Planning and Development, St.Tammany Parish Government.
Thank you.
We, and I'll just go through a very quick history. I know it's getting late, particularly for a planning meeting. Some of you walked in at the end of a Board of Adjustments meeting last month. And we had an issue with Goodby Square that, in good faith, we sent them to the Board of Adjustment meeting for consideration. It was determined at that time that that was an inappropriate place to put them. So in trying to move the project as quickly as possible in fairness to the developer, we put them onto this meeting. Since that time, we've done extensive work on some issues that the staff was not aware of at the Board of Adjustments meeting that are not directly related to the issue here tonight. And those being drainage in the subdivision to the north, drainage that possibly was impacted by the construction of Goodsby Square that is unrelated to the issues that they're having to the north, and then the cut and fill issue in Goodby Square. There may be some other things that come up as we meet through it. So what we're asking with the concurrence of the parties that I spoke about is asking that you table this action. So hopefully, starting scheduling this week and meeting next week, we can address each of these issues separately. What we're afraid of is they become jumbled in this meeting. If we're able to do that successfully, 2 of the issues will be resolved and you will never have to hear them. The 3rd issue we will bring to you hopefully with a resolution that everybody can agree to. And so that is our goal, and so we respectfully request for the tabling of that, and we will get to work, start trying to contact. What I'd ask is that the various groups start talking to their people, get some dates available next week for their leadership to meet with us, anybody that they want, not necessarily the president or, but any technicians that they want to meet with us, and we'll schedule those for next week and start moving so we have a resolution next month. And I don't know if anybody else would like to speak towards that, but that's the direction we'd like to go, is to try and get this all resolved. It is a complex project. It is Goodby Square has been developed in at this location, this portion of the larger development, the larger PUD that we did many years ago in 2006. Since 2011, been working on through multiple engineers, a number of developers, owners, and so it's a very complex issue. So we'd like to try and get it resolved so we don't end up spending a lot of time here and you tabling it anyway, because it is a very convoluted and confusing issue, or multiple issues. Thank you.
Mr. Fontenot, how long would you like postponement?
1 month, I think, should be sufficient.
1 month?
That's why we want to meet next week. We want to get started. We want to have everybody comfortable, have all our meetings that we can, and come to you as a united front and saying, the residents of the neighboring subdivision have indicated they welcome Goodby Square. They are not opposed to Goodby Square, but they're concerned. They have some drainage issues that I think, in fact, Public Works went out and did some work that has improved it. I think their subdivision is just at that age that it has some maintenance to be done, that kind of thing. And we just want to try and make sure we find out what the problems really are and fix the problems, not address things that end up not being the real problem.
When you speak of having meetings, is that between interested parties, homeowners association, and staff, or do you expect to have the planning commission also attend?
We'd be happy to have some planning commissioners attend if they want to. We can advise anybody who's interested. We were thinking staff, because particularly on Countryside, we think that it's something that has happened within their internal drainage system. We can't find where Goodby Square has directly impacted, they drain differently, has directly impacted Countryside's drainage, but something has happened. There is a pond that used to stay dry that is wet now. We can't figure out that Goodby Square did anything to cause that, but something caused it, so we need to track down what that is. So we need to get with the residents and talk about what things used to do, how they flow now, what changes have they seen, and we spent some of the time in the last 2 hours out here doing that exact thing, talking about a second phase that came in. We need to make sure that that was accounted for properly. So there's a lot of issues for us to try and juggle, and they can be handled distinctly. But when we handle it with one group, we're going to let the other group know about it. So we will let Mr. Henning know what we've worked out with Countryside. When we talk to some Countryside on the drainage issues that may impact, with Mr. Henning on the what may impact Countryside, we're going to let Countryside know where. What's happening, but we believe they are distinct issues, so we'll be working with our staff in Public Works to find resolution.
So you want to have a public meeting?
No, we just postpone it. I don't
Right,
think.
but I'm just trying to understand for the commission, in the event that the commission does support to postpone, the meeting not necessarily is not a community meeting to be facilitated by?
No, it'd be next month.
The
Next
planning.
month's commission meeting.
Okay, and in the meantime, staff will meet
Planning
with-
staff will take the lead and meet with all these parties.
Okay, very good. I just want to get clarity on that. Thank you. With that, is there anyone in the public who wishes to make a comment relative to the postponement request for 1 month? Yes, sir. If you would please come to the podium. Please come to the podium. Doctor, please state your name and address for the record for those that may not recognize you.
It's been a while. John Martin Goodby, and I'm with the other parties that are involved in this Countryside, and we do agree. We would like to work things out. There are three problems that sort of intertwine, and we'd like to sort of work this out, and then be able to come back to y'all with something that sort of clarifies the problems, and hopefully with the results of it. So we do agree and to postpone. If it's okay with y'all, it's great with us.
And Dr. Martin, you feel that postponing for 1 month will be sufficient time to have your meetings as well?
Well, I think so. I think Mr. Fontenot is working very hard on this, and I think he's doing a good job to clarify and to help. And he's been out there looking at the ditches and the water and things like that. And you know, he's a good man and working hard. So if you can't get it done in a month, I don't think we can get it done. But he's very confident we can get it done.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to make a comment at this time relative to the postponement? Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I represent the owner-developer of Goodby Square. We appreciate the leadership of Mr. Fontenot, particularly in the last few days, in trying to bring these issues to the forefront and communicating not just with me, but with the good folks in Countryside. I have met some of their leadership this evening, and although we may not be in direct meetings with them in the next month, we understand that their concerns need to be addressed. And I think we're committed certainly to doing the things that we need to do as it relates to the drainage concerns involving Goodby Square. So we're certainly in accord with a 1 month postponement. I would say that this is the same Goodby Square that you granted final to in July of 2017, that we thought we would have a resolution of all issues at the Board of Adjustment in February, and then had hopes of resolving issues this evening. So I agree with Dr. Martin. We need to get the issues resolved because we come back to you next month in hopes of having resolution. But we look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public who would make a comment relative to this? We would ask, and again, we appreciate all of you being here and that it took so long before your case was addressed. However, it was asked by staff as well to, if you would, fill out a name and address card so that they could forward to you any information and or keep you apprised as well. Mr. Fontenot and his staff, of course, will do that. But again, if you would like to get provide that information, we can ensure that staff does send you appropriate either email or written mail so that you're well apprised of what's happening. And again, we appreciate you being here. With that, if there's no further comment of the public, we will close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I concur with the postponement, but I would also like to be included on the meeting that, public meeting, because I have a lot of questions about reading through this information, which, thank you very much, it was a lot of past history of how we got to this point with the Goodby Square. But I do have some questions on the Countryside, the drainage, and I read in there where the parish has or owns some of those drainage. It wasn't ponds; they were just detention areas. And I've just driving through there, I've noticed a lot of grass, debris, whatever, and I just wondered, my thought was, who needs to clean that out, or is it supposed to be cleaned out, or that sort of thing. So I'd like to sit in on your meetings if you'll let me know when y'all are going to be meeting.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to let you know when they are. I'm not sure, it won't be normally when we do this, we do a public community meeting on a
Right.
specific night and everybody comes in. It won't be those kind of meetings. And I know your schedule, so, if we're meeting during the day, I'll let you know when they are. And if you're,
Okay,
if
if you
you're
just
available,
text me when they are and if I can make it.
or you can come by if you have those questions,
Okay.
and after the meeting, I can brief you on it. I'd be happy to.
Thank
Because
you.
a lot of that is a lot of the same issues.
Right.
And that specific issue is not related
To
to
the
cut
good
fill
beat.
on condition number 8. And that's kind of where we want to try and keep everything where it belongs. Thank you.
Do you want to postpone for 1 month? Motion by Commissioner Casabon to postpone for 1 month. Commissioner Randolph.
A second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Lauren, you'd like to second it as well? Okay. Any other comments by the commission? Again, to staff, if you would keep the commissioners apprised, Sydney, as to when those meetings are in case anyone would like to attend, since it's been brought now to our attention. Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to postpone for 1 month. Second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote.
Oh, saved by the bell.
Motion carries.
Is there any new business to come before the commission?
I'll tell you about that.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Commissioners, please pick up any of your drinks or papers when you leave. Pick up any of your drinks or papers.